So Mickey Mouse gets a call from his lawyer. The lawyer tells him, "Mickey, I'm sorry, but you can't divorce Minnie just because she's crazy." Mickey says, "I didn't say she was crazy. I said she was fucking goofy."
As the man strides into the hotel with his wife and kids eagerly waiting in the lobby, he leans in and asks the clerk, "Hey, buddy, is the porn channel in the room disabled, sir?" To which the clerk replies in disgust, "No, just regular porn, you sick fuck."
Did you hear about the groundbreaking discovery from a recent study at Boston University? Turns out, diarrhea is hereditary. Yep, it runs in your genes.
A dog walks into a bar and confidently asks, "Any plumbing jobs available?" A tipsy patron at the bar looks up and exclaims, "Whoa, a talking dog! You should join the circus." The dog shoots back, "Why the fuck would a circus need a plumber?"
There are 3 old ladies sitting on a park bench. A man in a trench coat walks by and flashes them. 2 of the old ladies have a stroke. The other one couldn't reach that far.
A woman places an ad seeking a man in the paper. She specifies she wants someone who won't run away, won't hit her, and can satisfy her sexually. A few days later, there's a robust knock at her door. She opens it to find a man with no arms or legs. The man looks up at her and says, "I'm here in regards to your ad. As you can see, I have no arms, so I'll never hit you. I also have no legs, so I'll never run away from you either." The woman looks at him and says, "Well, how do I know you can satisfy me?" The man replies, "Well, you heard me knocking the door, didn't you?"
So Jesus is up in heaven with his disciples, and they are all saying that there is a big drugs problem down on earth. However, the only way they can agree on in order to come to a decision about what to do about this is to go down to earth and try the drugs for themselves. So Jesus sends them down, and a few days later, they begin arriving back in heaven. Matthew arrives first, and Jesus asks, "What have you brought with you?" Matthew answers, "I have bought weed from Amsterdam." Jesus happily welcomes him. After that, Mark arrives, and Jesus asks what he has brought with him. Mark says, "I have brought cocaine from Colombia." "Excellent, my son," Jesus replies. "Enter." There is a big knock at the door, and Jesus asks who it is. "It is Judas," he says. And Jesus asks, "And what have you brought with you?" "FBI motherfuckers! Hands against the wall!"
A cop pulls over a car with 2 priests. The cop approaches the window and says, "We're looking for 2 child molesters." The priests look at each other, then back at the cop and say, "We'll do it."
A man is at the hospital getting a medical checkup. The doctor looks at his patient and tells him, "You have to stop masturbating." The man answers, "Why?" And the doctor says, "Because I'm trying to examine you, you pig."
A man walks into a bar and notices meat hanging from the ceiling. Curious, he asks the bartender, "Why is all that meat up there?" The bartender grins and explains, "We've got a bet. If you can jump and hit any of those meat pieces, your drinks are on the house for the entire night. But if you miss, you'll have to cover everyone's tab." The bartender then asks, "What do you say? Want to give it a shot?" The man chuckles and replies, "I don't think so. The stakes are too high."
I was on a blind date with this girl, and I told her that being funny is the second best way to get a girl into bed. She asked, "What's the best way?" I replied, "A big knife." She laughed and said, "You're funny." I responded, "Wise choice."
The Buddha walks up to a hot dog stand and says, "Make me one with everything." The Buddha pays with a $20 bill, and the vendor hands him his hot dog, then goes to help the next customer. The Buddha says, "What about my change?" The vendor replies, "Change must come from within." So Buddha pulls a gun on the vendor, and the vendor pleads, "Whoa, man, what about inner peace?" Buddha responds, "This is my inner peace."
Three men are on a hunting trip in the woods. After a successful day, they bring a buck back to their camp. They then proceed to get drunk and have an all-around good time. One of the hunters announces that he has to take a shit, so he shuffles off into the woods for privacy. Some time goes by, and the other two start to wonder why he's taking so long. They begin looking for him in the woods, and lo and behold, he is found sitting with his pants around his ankles on a log, his bare ass hanging off the side, totally passed out from drinking so much. Rather than waking their friend, they decide to play a joke on him. They leave and return with a bucket of the guts from the buck they shot. They dump the guts under their friend's bare ass and leave. The next morning, they wake to their friend walking stiffly out of the woods. They snicker and ask what happened to him and if he had a good shit. He responds, "Well, I passed out mid-shit, and when I woke up, I realized I had shit all of my guts out. But by the grace of God and the help of a big stick, I got it all back in."
My buddy got really mad at me the other day when he caught me sniffing his sister's panties. I'm not sure what made him angrier. The fact that she was still wearing them, or that all of their family were there. Either way, it really spoiled the funeral.
A young man is walking through a small village one day and decides to stop by a bar and have a beer. He walks into a bar and sees a grizzled old man crying into his beer. Curious, the young man sits down and says, "Hey, old timer, why the long face?" The old man looks at him and points out the window. "See that dock out there? I built that dock with my own 2 hands, plank by plank, nail by nail. But do they call me McGregor the dock builder?" No. The old man continued, "And see that ship out there? I've been fishing these waters for my village for 35 years. But do they call me McGregor the fisherman? No. And see all the crops in the farms out there? I planted and have been farming those crops for my village for nearly 45 years. But do they call me McGregor the farmer? No. The old man starts to cry again. "But you screw one goat."
An old religious woman goes to a pet store to buy a parrot. Everything is fine until she brings it home. It begins to swear uncontrollably. F this, F that, F you, and finally the lady can stand it no more. She grabs the bird, shoves it in the freezer, and slams the door shut. Squawking, shrieking, pounding, and cursing come out of the freezer for a few moments, and then it goes quiet. The woman is scared that she has hurt the bird and opens the freezer. The parrot walks calmly out and steps gently onto the woman's outstretched hand. He looks into the lady's eyes and says, "Ma'am, I am truly sorry if my language offended you, and it will not recur. If I may ask, what did the chicken do?"
Dad is listening to his daughter say her prayers before bedtime. She says, "God bless Mommy, and God bless Daddy, and God bless Grandma, and goodbye, Grandpa." He asks her, "Why did you say that?" "I don't know. I just felt like saying it." The next day, Grandpa drops dead. "Wow," thinks Dad, "that's an odd coincidence." A month later at bedtime, the daughter says, "God bless Mommy and Daddy, and goodbye, Grandma." Sure enough, the next day, Grandma breathes her last earthly breath. The dad realizes this is more than a coincidence, but he is not sure what to do. He doesn't want to disturb his wife by telling her. Grandma and Grandpa were her parents. Months go by, and one night the man is listening to his daughter saying her prayers at bedtime. "God bless Mommy." She turns her head and looks straight at him. "And goodbye, Daddy." "What?" "Are you sure, honey?" She nods. The man's heart begins racing and he breaks out in a sweat. He is so upset, he can't sleep at all that night. The next day he goes off to work, but locks himself in his office. He takes the phone off the hook, cancels all his meetings, and awaits the inevitable. He stays at work past 5 because he feels secure there. He watches the hours tick by. Finally, it is midnight, and drenched in sweat, he realizes he has cheated death. He drives home with all his nerves frazzled. His wife is up and waiting for him. "Where the hell were you today?" He replies, "Don't shout. I've had an absolutely miserable day." His wife then says, "You had a miserable day? I'm the one who had a miserable day." First, the milkman drops dead on the steps.
Guy walks into his house with a duck under his arm, looks at his wife and says, "Hey babe, just wanted you to know this is the pig I'm fucking." The wife interjects, "You dummy, that's not a pig, it's a duck." "I wasn't talking to you."
So, a man with a black eye settles into his seat on a plane and notices his seatmate has a black eye and tells him, "Hey, you've got a black eye too?" So he says, "Yeah, got it from a slip of the tongue, a little misunderstanding." And he answers, "No way, I got mine the same way. What happened to you?" And the man says, "Well, I was at the ticket counter buying a flight to Pittsburgh. The lady had, well, some big knockers. I accidentally asked for a ticket to Pittsburgh, and she socked me in the eye." Finally, the man thinks and says, "Ha, that's wild. Mine's kind of similar. I was at breakfast with my wife, meant to say, 'Pass the orange juice, honey.' But instead, it came out as, 'You ruined my life, you crazy bitch.'"
A DEA officer stopped at a ranch and told the rancher, "I need to inspect your ranch for illegally grown drugs." The rancher said, "Okay, but don't go in that field over there," as he pointed out the location. The DEA officer verbally exploded, saying, "Mister, I have the authority of the federal government with me." Reaching into his rear pants pocket, he removed his badge and proudly displayed it to the rancher. "See this badge? This badge means I am allowed to go wherever I wish, on any land. No questions asked. Do you understand?" The rancher nodded politely, apologized, and went about his chores. A short time later, the old rancher heard loud screams, looked up, and saw the DEA officer running for his life, being chased by the rancher's big bull. With every step, the bull was gaining ground on the officer, and it seemed likely that he'd sure enough get gored before he reached safety. The officer was clearly terrified. The rancher threw down his tools, ran to the fence, and yelled at the top of his lungs, "Your badge! Show him your badge!"
What do you call the hair between grandma's titties? Her vagina.
A woman is sitting at her recently deceased husband's funeral. A man leans into her and asks, "Do you mind if I say a word?" "No, go right ahead," the woman replies. The man stands, clears his throat, says plethora, and sits back down. "Thanks," the woman says. "That means a lot."
What's the difference between a fridge and your mom? The fridge doesn't fart when I pull my meat out of it.
The man sits down at a bar and orders a drink. After finishing, the bartender asks if he would like another. The man pulls out a small photo from his wallet, glances at it, and says, "Yes." This routine repeats, and after about 5 or 6 drinks, the bartender asks again. The man looks at the photo once more and says, "Yes." Intrigued, the bartender proposes a deal. "I'll serve you another drink on the condition that you tell me what that photo's of." Leaning back, the man softens his gaze and says, "Well, sir, the photo is of my wife. I like to keep it with me when I drink so I know when to quit." The bartender, touched, acknowledges that she must be a wonderful woman to influence him to stick to his limits. The man grins. "Nope, I just know it's time to go home when she starts looking good."
What did Batman's mother shout when his dinner was ready? Nothing! Batman's an orphan! She didn't make it to breakfast!